Whatever my dad did for the province of St. Mary, he would say pales in comparison to what the Capuchin friars did for him. My dad grew up in Yonkers, New York, in a row house with two families, his cousins, with his mom and his dad, and two sisters. And his father was a Yonkers firefighter who passed away when my dad was 12. I grew up in Sacred Heart Parish as well, and that is a monastery. And growing up, there were anywhere between 15 and 25 priests. The Capuchins were all over the place. When my dad's father, my grandfather, passed away, he was in effect adopted by Father Finn Sullivan, who was then the parishioner and who was then pastor at Sacred Heart Parish in Yonkers. Father Finian, for the rest of my father's presence in Yonkers until Father Finian died, was a surrogate dad for my dad. Father Finian took my father and a lot of his friends and made sure that they didn't get into trouble when they otherwise might have. Father Finian was a two-fisted kid from the Midwest. He was a former Gold Glove boxer. He was a tough guy. He was known to put his hands on people and to drag them out of bars if it was appropriate, which it often was. So Sacred Heart was a utopic place to grow up. He graduated from Manhattan College and with a degree in accounting, and while he was dating my mom at the time, he was involved in a car accident and suffered severe head trauma and required multiple surgeries. And he tried to get a job after Manhattan and was told by one potential employer specifically that because of the disfiguring appearance and the bandages on his face, he would never be able to get a job in the public domain and never in public accounting. And my father was discouraged, to say the least, and he met with Father Finian, and Father Finian said in so many words, "That's nonsense. You're too smart to be an accountant. You should go to law school." And my father then asked him the appropriate question, what am I going to do to support myself? And he said, you can teach at the high school. So my father went to law school at night, and he taught high school during the day while he had 3 children under the age of 18 months. My dad recoiled at bullies in any form, and because of his accident as a young man, he was required to do a lot of things that other people didn't have to do and fight fights that other people didn't have to fight. And then as he got older and developed the illness that oddly enough was a derivation of a blood transfusion he had gotten as a young kid in having all those surgeries, he saw the most fragile people in the most difficult circumstances and felt compelled to do something about it. He was introduced to the Elizabeth Seton Pediatric Foundation and the hospital, which takes care of the most medically fragile kids that should die because of their maladies, but who survive through the gift of God and whose parents and siblings have to struggle. And so he embraced that, and the last 5 years of his life was dedicated to developing and building the hospital. That was his last and probably the most appropriate cause he was involved in, because at the end of the day, these were the least of his brothers and sisters. Father Finian had this vision for Sacred Heart as this special place on the hill, which is the neighborhood. And one of the parts of that vision was to provide housing for people who, over time and based upon personal circumstances, necessarily couldn't remain in their houses. So, although Father Finian passed away long before both Finian Towers and Monastery Manor came into existence, when HUD financing became available, he was involved in every aspect of that. My father was fortunate enough to know a lot of priests, Cardinals O'Connor, Egan, Archbishop Dolan, and many Capuchins. His faith and his affiliation with priests was just a reflection of what he believed was important. He admired men and women who were religious regardless of their faith because they devoted themselves to God. And he got that again. At the end of the day, when you say, well, how and why and when, it's because of a kid on Ridge Avenue who lost his father in a fire at the age of 13, and the Capuchins came in and swooped him up and made sure that his life went on the right path. I think it did. My dad would be extraordinarily honored to be recognized by the Capuchins, and at the same time embarrassed. And had he been alive, he would have declined this recognition. He was the most humble, the most appropriately loving and welcoming person that I've ever met. And I miss him, and we all miss him. But we are extraordinarily confident and joyful that he's in heaven doing the things that he was destined to do there.